Hey y'all, UFC 319 wrapped up, and let me say that was actually a decent card from beginning to end. You got the prelims, decent card. One thing other I gotta say too is the crowd was not happy with wrestling. They did not like it. You could tell that if a fight went to wrestling, it would give you like 5-10 seconds and they'd be booing. They even booed Chimaev, even though he got cheered and DDP got booed at the press conference. But they were not having, they were bloodthirsty. They wanted the strikes. But, you know, I kind of find that funny. But let's get into the main card. We'll start off with the main event. I mean, what is there to really say? Chimaev just dominated DDP from beginning to end, from pillar to post, from bell to bell. He just dominated him. And you could see that whenever he got a hold of him, DDP couldn't do anything. He couldn't get up. Even when he tried, he just kept his hands around him and he just drag him back down. Or he'd start to get up and he would just drag him forward. So you'd kind of lose his base and have to try and get up again and then get pulled forward and lose his base. And just continually kept doing that. The one thing I will say with Chimaev is when he had him in the crucifix in round 1 and 3 and 5, he didn't have him long in 5, but especially 1, and 3, and I think especially 1, because he did a little bit in 3 where he was starting to hit heavier, throw some elbows. I would have loved to seen him in that first round just going heavy on the elbows. I think he could have finished the fight in round 1 or round 3 when he had DDP in the crucifix if he would have just started throwing some heavy elbows. Now, DDP did good defense with his head by keeping his head as close to Chimaev's body as possible, so he couldn't really post up that little bit and be able to deliver some hard elbows, but I definitely would like to have seen that happen. I think that would have been, that would have been a way he could have finished it. I will say I thought it was kind of a little bit unfair and a little bit wrong for Herb Dean to stand Chimaev and DDP up in the 4th round. The 5th round, I get it, because I think what made them different in my mind is the 4th round he was legitimately trying to find a way to advance position. He was legitimately just, hitting them. Where when it got to the 5th round, he took him down. He didn't even try and advance to side control or half guard or mount or nothing. He just was in the full guard and just throwing little punches. So I get that one. I just don't get round 4. I thought he was trying to advance. So that kind of threw me for a loop. But that's rest for you. Some refs are gonna let it go longer than others. And that's actually one thing that I think Chimaev could try and work on. Because one thing you saw that I think you see a difference in the way Chimaev fights versus Khabib Nurmagomedov, I think even Islam is, they wrestle you and they do chain wrestling. And that was one thing that Chimaev is very similar with those guys and why he was able to keep DDP down. But the thing is, they at least try and go hard, try and really smash you, try and do damage. Chimaev doesn't. And that's one thing I would have liked to see some more of Chimaev do in future fights. I think the thing is, I don't know who's going to compete with him. I think his next challenger is probably going to be your winner between Nassourdine Romanov or Caio Barrio. I think that's whoever wins that, because that's 2 weeks. No less than 2 weeks now. That is probably who's going to get the title shot. And depending on how much damage they take, that might be, if they're down for it, that might be something that you see in last card of the year. If not, I think it'll be early next year. within the first 3 months, I think you'll see that fight get made. I don't know who else they would put up against him, but I think that makes the most sense. But I just think kudos to you. You dominated DDP in a way that I didn't think was going to happen. And DDP, if he looks at him, he needs to get to the wrestling. He needs to get really heavy on wrestling training. Get the best coach you can. Get the best training partners you can, and there we go. Because if he let's say wins a fight or two, and he's back in the title picture. If Chimaev still got the belt, it's gonna be to me similar, same thing. So kudos to Chimaev for winning in such a dominant fashion. I just would have loved seeing him kind of go harder in the strikes when he had him in certain positions, mainly the crucifix and with elbow stuff, and kind of knock him out. But we got a new champion, and now it's gonna be who's gonna challenge him. I think it's, like I said, Nasruddin Imanov and Caio Borralho. I think that's who's gonna be the winner. That's gonna go to him. Now let's talk about the co-main event. And what I think is funny is there's 8 spinning elbow KOs in UFC history. There's 10 total, and the first ever back-to-back spinning elbow KOs. And I like how they were set up very differently. And I will say, Lerone Murphy looked like he was in trouble because Aaron Pico was just pressuring him constantly. He was throwing those punches. He was ripping to the body really well. I think he might have hurt him a little bit. He did hit him in the liver a couple times too. You could see just the pressure. He was trying to really use his grappling to pressure him, and then on top of when he break away, he would go to some strikes to then get his hands up to then go and wrestle him. You see just how he's put on that pressure and not letting him go. And then he did a smart move by realizing the pressure was coming and just stepping to his right, so he could then deliver it. And I mean, he put him down. I mean, I'm glad he's okay, but he was out for a good while. And I think that's one thing that actually worked against Pico in this fight, was he was too aggressive. And he had Lerone Murphy, who was really great at identifying that. And he said in the interview that he worked on that, his team worked on that, knew he was going to be aggressive, and so they had their plans set to kind of deal with that forward aggressive pressure that Pico puts forward. But I mean, it was nice, and you saw Lerone Murphy too getting tagged up early. You really did. And you just kind of saw him just not get too frantic, not get too crazy, just kind of stay in what the coaches wanted him to do, and just eventually just found that home, found that opening, and just found the elbow home and just did it. And that was just kudos to you, man. That was just devastating elbow. God, Jesus, that was just devastating. I think obviously his next gonna be for the title. He's strung together. He's 17-0-1, so he's no losses. He has 1 draw, no contest, but he has 17 wins. And he's just been stringing them together. And like they said, he needed that knockout. He needed that highlight reel kind of finish to push him there. And I just feel that did it. And it seems like everyone, Joe Rogan, Daniel Cormier, I think that's what makes sense. His next fight's gonna be for the title. I think it's gonna be a very good fight for that. But yeah, just crazy spinning knockout, and it wasn't looking good for him. Like I said, he was really kind of on his back foot. Pico just following him, kind of stalking him, looking to just drop bombs or take him down, and he just identified it, stepped off, kind of stepped to the side so he could get that angle, and then just boom, and just hit on the chin, just, night sleep time kind of thing. So I give kudos for him not freaking out, getting too panicky or anything like that when pressure was put on him. He did take some hard shots from Pico, not to the head, but especially mainly to the body and those liver shots, and was able to stick with it and just be patient, be the tactician he is, and then just boom, hit him with that spinning elbow. Hit him with that spinning elbow to just kind of finish him off, and probably ink his way to a title fight. Now we go to the other spinning elbow with Carlos Prates, and I think you definitely can see how the Fighting Nerds is a good thing for him to move full time. I think you can see the benefits of him moving camp. This fight I thought was very interesting was you kind of saw a tale of 2 rounds. You saw very similar to the Aaron Pico, where he was pushing forward. He was throwing some kicks too, and all that. But you really saw both of them kind of pushing forward, pushing the pace, pressing them up. But where you kind of was seeing in the co-main event with Pico and Murphy, you were saying Pico just really put the pressure on, and really Murphy never really got started. He just kind of was patient, waiting for a shot, and he just kind of saw it and then angled off and did the spinning elbow to win the fight and to ink his title shot. With Prates, what you saw was he shifted middle of that fight. You saw him start to get his groove on. You saw him start to land his shots. He did some punches. He did some low kicks. He did some knees. There's one knee that came close to hitting him. It kind of bounced off his chest. But you could see how he was starting to get his rhythm in. And you just kind of saw that. You saw the turning of the kind of tide right there in that second half of that first round, where he was avoiding Murphy. He was hitting Murphy with some really good shots. You saw Murphy grapple, and you heard him, or Joe Rogan, you can see his mouth moving. Joe Rogan said, "You want to wrestle, huh? You want to wrestle, huh?" Because he could see the tide was turning. He needed to kind of mix it up a bit, keep Prates guessing, and it just didn't work. Prates started to get in his groove. And two, what you saw is he did kind of like a tomahawk elbow, just to throw it out there. Before then, he went and did a spinning elbow, and it cut him open too. Didn't put him out as long as Pico, but you could definitely see he just knocked him out. You could tell he knew he knocked him out. He just walked away. He was like, "I'm good," and walked away. Knew he didn't need to land anymore. But I can definitely think that the Fighting Nerds should be his camp full time. I think that's going to be his best bet to kind of continue winning, stack them together, push for what could be a title run, or a chance at a title, kind of push him into contention for it. I think Fighting Nerds is where his camp should stick there. He moved there, he should stick there, and I think that will do good for him. But that was a good fight, both the co-main and this fight, as long as it lasted, because of just how there was kind of that just knockout that came kind of out of nowhere. So it was a very, very good fight. You had Neil just starting to kind of start out the fight, pushing the pace, getting close, landing those hands. And then you saw Prates start to kind of figure him out. Like, okay, I know what you're doing. And then you saw Prates start to implement his game. But he didn't just do punches. He did a couple low kicks. Those were some heavy low kicks. You could also see him do some knees. And then just the tomahawk elbow into then the spin elbow. Just very nice. Very, very beautiful kind of strike right there to put him out. And just first time in UFC history, back-to-back spinning elbows. And there's 8 before this, and he had 2, same card, back-to-back, within 10 minutes of each other. That was impressive. So, kudos to him. We go to the next fight. I expected MVP to win just because of how in and out he was. He dropped Cannonier in the first and the second round, both by right hands. I think the second, he didn't get knocked down because he was hurt. He was more of a trip, maybe. I think he just kind of was trying to move backward, then got hit. And by him moving backward and then getting hit, that's what kind of made him fall over. But it was MVP. Even taunting him a bit with the basketball and the kind of calm down, and just overall the in and out movement, kind of throwing from the hip, so it came out of very weird angles. That's what makes MVP good. And I'll give him this. His wrestling, he only got taken down, excuse me, twice in the whole fight. And in the third round, the reason he got him takedown is he went to go crazy. Kind of feeling himself a little bit too much. Went for a Superman punch. You can see Cannonier ducked it, fell down, and Cannonier just jumped up top. And that was his time. Should really look to, I know he tried to do Americana, didn't work. MVP was able to get out of it, but he really should have looked to really try and secure them out earlier, because I think he did get it, but then really deliver some heavy shots and hope to knock him out. He didn't do that. You had MVP just in and out. You can see how he's so good with space and so good with knowing distance that he would just kind of lean back. There's times he would just kind of, if you want to call it, slip, and then he would just kind of angle after the slip, and Cannonier do a punch that'll go right by. And it just, there's nothing Cannonier could do. He could have wanted to do everything, and it just wasn't hitting. I would have liked seen him do more low kicks, because he did little to none, and I think that maybe would have helped him to do little to none, or to do some versus the little to none he did. But because he didn't, that's kind of, you played in MVP's hands. You played into a style of being able to go in and out using that kind of point style. Hit you with some shots when he was opening, and then just use his head movement to then make you miss, and then use his footwork to angle out to then reset. And even when he got up against the cage, he just was most time able to move around, and the couple times he did push him, he didn't try and go for a single or a double. He just pushed him against the cage. And kudos to MVP, gotta give him credit. He fought that off real good. His takedown defense was better than I expected. So kudos on MVP for that. Just kind of the fight I expected. With the way his style is. And now we go into the last fight, the first fight of the main card. Tim Elliott, impressive. Because you could see in that first round, Kaya Sakara was lighting him up. He was hitting him with some really good shots. Even with Tim's unorthodox movement and his little hand movements, it wasn't doing anything to Kai. It wasn't bothering him. He was teeing you up. Or teeing him up. And just really hitting on him. Now, I got to give it to, because he took a nice solid head kick and didn't go down. Didn't get knocked out. And it was more to the neck than necessarily the jaw or head. It was, still something that could have hurt him. Use it to take down. And just, tried to do some ground and pound, tried to look for, he tried to look for a submission too, but there wasn't enough time there on to do anything. Kai had some good defense. Excuse me, to hold him off. But then the second round was a different story. You could tell that Kai was very nervous on kind of his striking. He didn't want to get taken down again because I think he knew that he was outgunned there. He's at disadvantage. And so you could see how he was very much hesitant. And that first takedown, he was very nice. He defended. He got up. But you could just tell that Tim Elliott started to land some really good shots on him. Started kind of taking control of the fight, being the one to pressure him. Being able to land some strikes. You just saw Kai wasn't throwing as much, and then boom. Tim found his ability for the takedown. Took him down. And you could tell he was either going to ground and pound him or look for a submission. And, Kai for initially just kind of was fine there. Sitting there. Wasn't really fighting back too hard. And then, boom, he kind of scrambled. But he did the one mistake and left his neck out there. And Tim Elliott is really, really good when it comes to scrambles. And kind of getting the better of that position. And that just caused him to be able to take advantage of that scramble. And with Kai leaving his neck out there, he just landed in one of, if not his best submission, which was using getting a guillotine and going to mount to do a mounted guillotine, and that was it. And sometimes it can be something for Kai Sakara. He's two UFC fights, 2 losses. He's probably gonna fall out of the top 15. So neither didn't bump Tim Elliott up, and Tim Elliott, this is probably, if he's gonna make a run, this would be it. But I mean, it was still a good fight. You just saw, kind of a tale of 2 fights, with the first round pretty much being owned by Kai until he got taken down from that high kick that Tim Elliott caught. The second round, him being very cautious, didn't want to throw too much, and then Elliott just kind of started to take the fight over, put the pressure on because of that, and then go for 2 takedowns. One of them, Kai got up, but then he was able to wait a little bit, just boom, take him down again when Kai threw some punches, and kind of hold him a bit, try and look for something, and just when he stood up, after he tried to go for some punches from full mount, and he kind of got kicked off from Kai. Before Kai could get up, he got beat to the scramble, and just ended up leaving his neck out there, and Tim Elliott did it. So all in all, it was a good card from start to finish, from the prelims to the main card. Main event was a little boring, but let's be honest, that's how Chimaev fights. So yeah, that was kind of my analysis and what I thought overall in the card. I'll have a video up regarding the fight with Johnny Walker, and I can't pronounce his name the greatest, so the Chinese fighter. I'm kind of my prediction for that card, but all in all, good card. Kind of enjoy watching. So that's it for me. That's my thoughts. Everyone out there, train hard, have fun. Peace, y'all.